There comes a time in our journeys where we really have to give pause and assess and start to discern what are rest stops in our experiences and what are our places of residence, where we actually set up shop and begin to create and start a new life from that particular long term experience. So often, what happens in life is that people mistake rest stops that are parts of their experiences as the places where they need to set up. And they even do this with relationships. This is why so often people end up marrying individuals that were only meant to be an enhancer of their relationship, help to develop them to be even better in the relationship that was going to come. And sometimes those relationships continue to work out, but then most time people start seeing that they actually settled, that they got off at an exit too soon and set up shop. So as you are going along your journey, you need to ask these questions and be very present, especially when you've lived enough life that you can definitely see that, oh, I might have settled a little too soon, even for something good, but not necessarily allowing something greater to come into your experience. And sometimes we don't just leap from where we are into something great. We grow and we develop, we evolve, I should say, into the best versions of ourselves that will be able to be more ready and committed to a higher level of beingness. But again, along the way, sometimes we start looking at linear time and thinking, oh, I wanted to have this done by this point, and whoever's in my life now, I'm going to go ahead and settle down with them, or whatever job I'm in at this point, that's where I'm going to put my stake in the ground and I'm going to set up shop here for something more permanent. But again, when we don't allow the fullness of who we are at every phase to give birth to a new version of who we are, we definitely will settle. We will often mistake rest stops for the actual destination. There are times in life when we're in transition, and when we're in a transitionary phase, that's not really the time to be making major commitments a certain way, because if we understand that it's a transition, it's a passing through. I am here at this stop because there's something necessary for me to get. So an example is like if you are traveling and there is a particular destination, and when you stop at a rest stop or the hotel for that time, overnight or however, you understand the purpose of that. You understand that this particular pause in the journey is for this aspect of it. And I know sometimes the journey, because it's not linear, it's not a straight line, it doesn't give you all of that information up front. Sometimes you don't know because you're like, well, I'm actually here longer than I anticipated to be here. And something that was going to be what you thought was a rest stop may turn into a place of residence. So this is where along the journey, you have to be open. You have to be very, very present and very connected to each new now moment. because new information may arise. And where you thought you were headed, you may discover that right before you or right around the corner is actually what you need next. It doesn't mean that you're not still ultimately going to end up at the destination that you imagined yourself to end up. It just could be different. Or reversal roles could take place. But this is where you have to be connected to your life to know what are rest stops. Is this person that I'm with, is this kind of a temporary lodging situation for me to grow and evolve and expand? Or is there something more here? And I know sometimes that can take the element of surprise out of the relationship because you're like, well, I don't want to really think so much about that right now. I just want to allow it to be what it is and see where it goes, where it evolves. And you can certainly still do that, but you definitely need to have consistent check-ins with yourself in terms of why is this relationship here? What is it here for? And what am I being prepared for? Or is this it? So there are questions that you can ask yourself for. And whether it is the career that you're involved in, whether it's making a decision for moving, life gives us the opportunities to ask these questions and then to be much more expansive. So I'm going to use the example of moving. You could possibly be living in multiple locations. But then something will stand out to you in terms of what is going to be your primary home base. And then what are other areas that maybe you travel to during certain times of the year and you have property there because you're going to need to be there. But we have to start understanding what the true alignment is for our experiences so that we aren't mismatched in how we're going through life. This is where you start to live more aware, more consciously in a sense, more present, so that you can be in sync because life is always giving us clues, always giving us clues. And you can know definitely when something that even is a good thing. Like I even say in my relationship coaching that I do with individuals, everybody that you love doesn't mean you need to marry them. There's some people that you could have you have a great relationship. There's not really, I won't say a such thing as a soulmate. I think that there are multiple options of your soulmate. But if you want the much more expansive, much more evolved experience that's going to be the highest and best possibility, which can be multiple ones, but you can only choose one in a sense. You want to develop yourself to where that becomes evident. Where you're not in relationships that were just there to be the teaching relationships for you that help you evolve for something much more expansive, that you start to settle there. And I will say this, that even whether it's jobs or relationships or anything that you're doing, no matter how long you've been invested in those, sometimes those residencies can now also change. And it's time to move to a new house or a newer experience or sometimes a much more expansive experience that you've had. Maybe it's time to downsize and reposition. But you just want to be connected enough to your life to be able to discern, because it's going to help you in your decision making. And especially at this juncture of your journey, this message is primarily for individuals who actually have really lived some life. And though this will be beneficial to even people just getting started in life, for sure, to ask these questions. But you do have to live some life, and you're not always going to have everything to be black and white for you. But when you have lived enough life, these types of questions, they benefit you tremendously. They help you to understand so that you are not setting up shop in places only meant to be transitionary. You are not marrying individuals that are only meant to be transitionary relationships. Part of your learning journey, but not necessarily, again, your end all and be all for that phase. So going to careers, whether it's you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for someone, you just have to be present. Is this going to be what I need to really put my stake in the ground? Or is it just what is here for now as things are progressing? You have choice in life. Now, don't get me wrong in terms of it's not a right or wrong if you choose to only be with the good level or you want the better level, so to speak. I like to metaphorically use the Olympic analogy in terms of placing, in terms of going for the goal. And you go for the goal. Everyone wants to go for the goal, but maybe then someone's not going to get the goal. They'll either get the silver or the bronze in terms of that placement. So you can look at your life in that way. You can always go for the goal, but then it may be that going for the goal is a little too hard for you, and you just feel like, I've been through so much and I've done so much. I'm okay with the silver level. I'm okay with the bronze level. As long as I've placed in my, the top brackets, I'm good. I'm okay. You can make those choices. You can make those decisions, but it better be from that level. Anything before that is definitely that you are really settling out of the higher alignment. And then in life, you were just at the Olympics of your life, but you never placed. You got there, you made it there, but you never placed. And because these unique trajectories are for you, you're not really ever competing with anybody except the different levels of yourself. But let me say this. Those different levels do contain opportunities that can be once in a lifetime opportunities, even though they are on your trajectory. And if you don't make the right decisions in terms of aligning with that in the right timing, then you definitely can miss out. And then you will have to, quote unquote, settle. And sure, you can take the time to level up your experiences to try to meet those other experiences, but I can tell you that's going to take work. And when you've already done a lot of work and lived a lot of life, you kind of get to the point where you want this to pay off in a much more expansive way with ease. You don't want to work another 5 to 10 to 20 years to get something, to be something, when already you've put in the work through life to actually align with trajectories that are already ready for you to step into. But again, if you don't understand the difference between what your rest stops are and where you need to set up shop, then you make the journey a longer and harder journey. And again, some of you know what that looks like. You stopped at the rest stop and you thought that that was what you were supposed to be doing in a job or in a relationship. And sometimes the relationship ends in divorce or separation or however. And then the job ends up not being what it is that you thought it was going to be. And then maybe later you do get the job that you were really wanting for, could have held out a little longer for. But then there's so much in between that's created that can be very unnecessary. So again, just be present and ask yourself consistently, is this a rest stop? Or am I setting up something more permanent here? And if I'm already in something more permanent, is this now a jump off point for something new? It's just a never ending journey, isn't it? So I hope that what I've shared and provided is beneficial to you, food for thought, and empowerment for this now and next level of your journey.